So we're just going to wait another couple of minutes for folks to log in.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Tim Klitz. I'm the chair of the Board of Trustees for ISD. Welcome to this prospective candidates information session. We've started the application window for prospective candidates for the trustee elections. It started last Friday and it continues until the 27th of this month. The intention of this session is to give you some more information about what it's like to be a trustee, what is the board, and what do we do. So the board and why it exists. Well, the board is the governing body of the school. The board governs, the director and her staff manage. We set the strategic goals, they implement it, and develop the processes and the procedures to implement the strategic plans, the goals, all this in alignment with our mission, vision, and values. The Board of Trustees was established in our Articles of Association. That was back in 1980s when we founded, when we were founded. And at that time there was an agreement, and it still exists, between the government of Senegal and the government of the United States of America, allowing for the creation of a school, ISD, as an English language educational program for international students. It also establishes the school's nonprofit character under the responsibility or auspices of the United States Embassy. Congruent to that, there's a memo of understanding between the school and the U.S. Embassy here that clarifies the relationship and ensures acceptance of U.S. Embassy dependents, children, to ISD. It also provides embassy services to ISD, such as shipping and customs and security. The board itself, we have the trustees, but it's actually more than that. We have the 9 voting members, the trustees. Some are elected, some are appointed. We're what we call a hybrid board, which is the most common form of international school board. In addition to that, the board actually extends to include administrative staff. We have the director, the deputy director, both school principals, the faculty rep, and we have an ambassador's rep for the U.S. Embassy. And we all work together to advise, or they work together to advise us trustees, since we're the ones who have a vote, to make the best, most strategic, long-lasting choices concerning challenges that we have as a school. There are a couple of other things. The majority of the trustees do need to be elected. Like I said, we are elected and appointed. but a majority of them, at least 5, have to be elected. The majority of them also have to be American citizens. This is a condition established when the school was founded. Being a trustee, one of the ways that we operate in sort of 3 different realms, so 3 different ways of thinking. We call them modes of governance. The first one is fiduciary. That's where we are stewards of tangible assets. That's the part that's probably the easiest to wrap one's head around. That's, you know, setting the tuition, approving the budget, making sure that the buildings on campus are functional and in good working condition for the students. We also have the long-term good of the school. And then the third, and probably the most challenging one, is what we call the generative mode of governance. And this is more sort of a high level, more of a thinking about issues and topics, of just sort of making sense. It's not really coming up with action items, it's just thinking, what is this thing, why is this thing? And that can help guide us when it comes to our strategic thinking and our fiduciary responsibilities. How does the board work? We have, like I said, 9 voting members. But even when we have all 15 of us assembled, we work collaboratively. We try and have consensus, though when that doesn't work, it is a majority rule. The thing for the trustees, the thing to understand is that in our meetings, both committee and board, we have open, honest, respectful discussions about the various topics and issues that are at hand. Like I said, while there may be disagreements in the meetings, once that decision is made, we must support it publicly. Most of the work, like I said, is done at the committee level. The committees then bring information or bring issues, topics to the board meetings. Those manifest in 3 different ways during the actual meeting. There's information items, just that, hey, this thing is going on, here's what we're working on. There's discussion items, where let's talk about this thing as a big group. Where do we want to go? What do we want to do? What do we want to achieve? And then there are the decision items. Those are the actual votes. We want to approve the budget. We want to approve our goals and things of that nature. The discussions outside of the meetings are at the discretion of the board chair, but they don't happen that often. So what do we do? I mentioned the committees. As it stands right now, we have 4 standing committees: Finance, Governance and Development, Buildings and Grounds, and Policy. On occasion, we have additional committees. In the past, we've had an Officers Committee. There are 4 officers on the board: Chair, Vice Chair, Secretary, and Treasurer. It's also in some places called an Executive Committee. We don't have a formal organization this year. We didn't really have one last year in that way, but it is an option at the discretion of the board. We also have committees as needed, these ad hoc committees. Last year we had strategic planning, we had director search. This year we have our opportunities and challenges ad hoc committee. Finance, as you can imagine, leads the board's oversight in the school's short and long-term financial health. Governance and development ensures that the school flourishes now and in the future by overseeing the smooth functioning, growth, and development of the Board of Trustees. So while it says governance, it isn't governing the school, it's just making sure that the board as a whole is functional and knowledgeable and developed to make the best decisions possible. Buildings and Grounds is just that. It is responsible for the physical presence of the school. All of our buildings, the grounds, the fields, all of that. And Policy establishes and revises board's policies as needed. We're in the midst right now of updating our board policy, which has never really been done. It's always been added to, but it really hasn't been updated. We're in the process of doing that. That's led by our policy committee. One of the key aspects of the policy committee is making sure that when new policies are developed, when they're being voted on, that they're in alignment with our foundational documents, with our goals, with other requirements such as accreditation requirements. We were accredited 2 years ago. And there are things we want to make sure we're like that. And then obviously all these decisions are always aligned with our mission, value, vision and values. We have obviously a relationship with the director. That is the trustee's only employee. We have the responsibility of hiring, supervising, evaluating, compensating that employee. And through that employee, the rest of the hiring happens. We work on a partnership with the director. Board chair meets with the director on a regular basis. The director participates in all of our committee meetings, as well as the board meetings. And relationship with the association. The association is basically all the parents and the teachers. It's what our community is. It's just a different way of saying it. The board is representative of the association. We are all current members of the association. We're current parents. We don't necessarily, doesn't need to be that way with the ability to appoint trustees. They don't have to be active members, but there still needs to be a strong tie, strong connection to ISD. And while we are sort of representative and come from the association, we don't represent any one segment of that association. As you can imagine, with a school of this size and with our varied backgrounds, we are by nature different, have different experiences, different nationalities, and all of that contributes to hopefully a well-rounded discussion and decision-making for the board. In addition to just being representative of the association, we have an open and structured communication process. It is a formalized process. If you have an official question, you can email us. Our monthly meetings do allow for a public section at the very beginning of it. It's about 15-20 minutes long. And then we also have our annual association general meeting. This year, the meeting will be on May 14th. This is a Thursday. At that, we'll go over yearly finances, budget for next year, work that we've done towards our goals this year, and for the purpose of this, we will also reveal who's won the elections for this year's trustees. Probably what most of you are really wondering is, what is the actual commitment? What is it that you're going to be asked to do? What are the requirements? Obviously, there's the time commitment. In general, 10 to 15 hours a month, depending on your role. Monthly board meetings, I have here 3 to 4 hours. Towards the end of the school year, when you're wrapping up things, they tend to go a little bit longer because there's a bit more at the beginning of the year. They're a little bit less than that. Occasionally, we have what's called executive sessions. That's where it's just the trustees with the director, sometimes without the director. At the end of the meeting, those usually are short, 20-30 minutes. Monthly committee meetings. We try and keep those to about an hour or so. Now, with trying to keep the committee meetings to an hour and the board meetings to 3 hours, let's say, there is a requirement to do work outside of those things, and that's usually the preparation, the reading materials. We usually try to have our agendas ready a week before the meetings, and any supporting documentation is in those agendas for the trustees to review ahead of time, so we all come in with the knowledge of what we're going to talk, so we don't spend the time reading through the stuff. We can discuss it and make decisions. We have a board retreat, a very important part. We have it at the beginning of the school year. It's, in a lot of ways, it's the first time that as a group the board is together, and it's about 2.5 days long. At least the last couple of years it's been 2.5. We're planning on next year it being 2.5 days as well. And that's where we all get the same concrete foundation and governance of what it is to be a trustee. We develop our goals. We figure out who's going to be on which committees. We discuss who our officers are going to be, who's going to lead the committees. And it's a team building effort as well. For next school year, the board retreat is going to be Thursday, September 3rd through Saturday, September 5th. Most of it will take place here on campus, but there may be a day or so off campus so folks can focus more on the work at hand and not be distracted by on campus. Like I said, if you are an officer or if you're a committee chair, there's a greater time commitment needed because you are responsible for, if you're a committee chair, assembling and approving the agenda, making sure the minutes are up to date and accurate. If you're an officer, depending on what your role is, there's a bit more of a time commitment. As board chair, I would say it's close to a full-time job, depending on what's going on. Excuse me. In addition to all the sort of general things, for this school year, for those who are elected, for those who are joining as trustees for next year, we do have two asks, two requirements. And that is joining our May and our June board meetings. We have our May meeting on the 20th and our June on the 9th. It's tradition that at the board meeting right after the elections, we have the new trustees join, sit in, observe to get a feel for how the meetings run and what we discuss. The June one this year, we're trying as well, and that's going to be ideally a transitional, more involvement, more collaborative work, setting a good foundation for next year. So that's all the time and nitty-gritty physical sort of commitments. There's a mental commitment as well, though, which is of service to the school, to the association, to the mission. We have governance agreements that we read through, we approve, we all sign, we agree to abide by X, Y, and Z. We also strive to make sure that what we're doing is a best practice within international education. And then very important in terms of approaching being a trustee, joining something. If you've never done it before, if you've never been on a school board before, the best way to come into it, the best mentality to have is the mentality of curiosity. Come in with questions. Come in like, why is this way? Most of the stuff that we deal with is, or that we get asked, I should say, not that we deal with, that we get asked is sort of operational in nature. And so having a good foundation of how the school operates helps us as trustees with our different modes of governance. It does not help, and it actually becomes a hindrance if you come in with a specific agenda. You know, I want to do this thing or that thing. It becomes very challenging to work within a group if folks are coming in with agendas. All right, so I talked about some of the commitments for next year, the board retreat and meetings. What are the actual topics, issues that we're anticipating? This can always change, but we're anticipating that you would deal with next year. One, obviously, enrollment trends and its financial impact. This is something we've been dealing with the last couple of years. That obviously is always a topic that we're going to be interested in. You'll see at the Association General Meeting in May, the vast majority of the revenue, their income that the school takes in is through tuition. So enrollment has a direct impact on staffing and services provided. And so that's something obviously that the trustees, the board, is very focused on. Next year, we're also going to start work on our long-term strategic plan. We're currently on a 2-year bridge strategic plan. We had a gap where we did not have a strategic plan. And that made it challenging to try and figure out what should we do and why should we do something. With the new director last year, we developed a 2-year strategic plan, Bridge 1. It's very operational in nature, just sort of getting things more lined up, structurally sound. Next year, the board will be starting the work, and it takes about a year to develop it, to get that 3 to 5 year strategic plan. This is usually a whole community exercise. More of that will be fleshed out in the board retreat and as the board decides next year how they want to organize that. Updated campus master plan. So it's always a topic that we have as well. Just what renovations, major or otherwise, will we be doing on campus. And then there's the usual responsibilities. Financial responsibilities, like I said, budget review and approval, evaluation of the directors and that we're responsible for. And then we have board goals, which are established in the board retreat. And then we have committee goals, or what we call terms of reference. And that's sort of the checklist, the to-do list for each of the different committees. Some of the committees, as you can imagine, are very sort of prescribed and the terms of reference, the TORs, don't change that much from year to year. Finance committee would be one of those. Where each year you have to review the last year's statement, you have to review the audit, you have to select the auditor, you have to prepare the budget, review the budget, propose the budget. Other things, governance has the elections, has education of the board, of the trustees as well, but they can do more than just that. Policy is the same way. And there's also, like I said, when you have an ad hoc committee or task force, then there's a whole other realm of terms of reference, of responsibilities for that. I mentioned that the application window is now open, and it's open until the 27th. It is referenced in the JAG Journal today, and it's also in the emails that went out last week. There's a link as a Google form. If you are interested in being a candidate, we do ask for a few things. One, a photo, so everyone knows who you are. A CV, so everyone understands what your background is. We ask for a copy of your passport. Again, that ties into the requirements we have in our bylaws and articles of association of making sure that we meet the American citizen requirement. And then you're also going to have a letter of intent or a letter of interest saying, yes, I'm willing to stand as a candidate to be a trustee. All of that is through this Google form that we have. We upload all of those things. Deadline for that, again, is March 27th. We have 3 open positions in this election. One of them must be an American citizen, so that we keep those numbers in alignment. Once that window closes, the association on April 9th will be notified the date and the agenda of the AGM, the Association General Meeting, the date, May 14th, but the agenda will be notified of that. And they'll also be given a list of all the different candidates who will be standing for election. Voting will start on the 23rd of April. It's an online voting. Election Buddy is the software package that we use for that. Voting period is 3 weeks. If, come the 23rd, you have not received an email from Election Buddy, please contact the IT department here at school to make sure that we have your correct email address. Like I said, voting is for 3 weeks. It will close at 3 p.m. on May 14th, at which time we'll notify the winners or the candidates, whether or not they were elected or not. And then we'll have the Association General Meeting that evening where we'll announce the winners. If at any time during this presentation you have any questions, you should be able to type those in, and we'll try and answer those as best we can. But before we get to the question and answer things, just some testimonials, just some sincere thoughts from trustees of why they wanted to be a trustee, what have they gotten out of it. And you'll see a lot of these are sort of recurring themes. And this one in particular says, saw what a key role the school plays in the sense of community and family well-being, and wanted a way to make a tangible contribution to this community. It's a strong sense of service that we all have. Again, it's the service to the school, to the mission. This trustee also talks about being curious about school governance and policy creation and strategic oversight. Great open mindset that we have of, tell me how this works, and how can we do it better? How can we make it last? This trustee also recommends to anyone who is interested that they have a willingness to learn, listen, share, and ultimately support and grow with our school. Other trustees say, this allows me to support students, teachers, and families. Again, we are the governing entity, not the management entity of the school. But our decisions, our policies, our strategic plans, our goals do, through the director and her staff and their implementation, directly affect student learning, family well-being, student well-being, faculty, teachers, and their abilities to provide our kids with the best education possible. Again, the last testimonial talks about, I wanted to give back to amazing school and community. You know, guide the strategies put in place by the school, continue to serve its mission. You know, talk about the role of trustee being important to bring diverse perspectives and professional expertise to the decision-making table. And that is a very important aspect. Come with questions again. If you don't understand how something works, ask. We'll figure it out. We'll explain it to you so that we have the ability to make the best decisions possible. That is, in a nutshell, what it means to be a trustee and what some of the requirements are. At this point, if you have any questions, by all means, please put them in the screen, and we'll go ahead and answer them as best we can. I'll give you about another 10 seconds if you have any questions. Thank you very much for taking a moment out of your evening to share with us and learn a bit more about what it is to be an ISD trustee. If you do have any questions, obviously you can email us at boardbox@ist.sn or at faculty.ist.sn. You can also ask any of the existing trustees if you have any questions. You'll see me on campus. I'm on campus every day, so feel free to chase me down and ask me questions. And I hope to see a lot of you in the applying to be a candidate. Thank you very much, and have a good night.